Hey everybody, welcome back to Threat X3 Productions. I am Nick.
And I am Nate.
And today we're going to be talking about MCU Phase 4. Or 3. You know, depending on what movie we're fucking watching.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
So anyways, yeah, we're kind of talking about how's Phase 4 going so far. Just recently, me and Nate were able to watch Shang-Chi and Eternals. So we are officially caught up on the MCU happenings. So let's start with Black Widow, because one, it's technically a Phase 3.
It was by default beginning of Phase 4. Yeah, it was Phase 4 by default.
But by chronological order, it happened during Phase 3 is what I'm getting at. So that's why it's confusing as hell. Anyways, but we'll start with Black Widow because it's the most who gives a fuck one. So what did you think about it?
So Black Widow, I actually did enjoy. What I will repeat that I said back then when it came out is I feel like if this movie would have come out in theaters like it was supposed to without any delay and without COVID, probably would have been a lot better. Probably would have been received a lot better because it legitimately is one of those like just summer blockbuster movies. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's got good action in it. I mean, and the movie itself is good, but the problem is having been 2 years and a pandemic at this point, like, not that we forgot about Natasha by any means, but that movie would have been a lot more impactful if it came out 6 months to a year after we see her die, instead of 2 years, you know, so where the wound is still fresh. But I did enjoy it overall. It's not my favorite MCU movie, but I mean, I definitely would put it up there above like a lot of what I would put it up there above what people typically say is their least favorite. Like, of course, like Dark World and things like that. Like, I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad Marvel movie. I think it's just awkward because of when it was released. And if you compare it to everything else that's on Phase 4 now, it just stands out.
Yeah, it stands out as just, like I said, who gives a fuck? Because, unfortunately, Marvel taking this big stance on, like, oh, now we have a woman. It's like, okay, you had Captain Marvel, and then even before that, like, anyways. I don't know. I will agree that it's not a bad movie, and I will agree that, you know, it was released weird, but I don't think just because it was released at a regular time our feelings would have changed about the movie itself, because it is just kind of a throwaway side quest of a movie.
For
now,
now.
there's nothing in the grand scheme of things that really matters. You know, and I mean, yeah, maybe the mind control thing will come back up, but then once again, that goes back to the whole chronological order of this thing. So it's like, okay, so this mind control thing has just been on the back shelf for how freaking long now? Because it's in between Infinity War and Endgame, there's 5 freaking years. So you're saying for 5 years they just kind of sitting on this mind control stuff, and even if it comes up during the next Black Panther or literally any movie that it comes up in, you're going to say that it's been just sitting around for 7 years, maybe being perfected, I'll admit, but still it seems freaking weird. Okay. So that's what makes this whole situation so weird, is because, like, is it a good movie? Yes. Does it have good characters? Yes. Does it have good action? Yes. It's like everything about it from an individual standpoint is good. It's just the fact of, where does it fit into the MCU? Does it really matter? Did this story need to be told? And if the answer is no, then it's like, it's just kind of a throwaway movie, and that's what really kind of sucks about it. Let's move. So go ahead.
Well, I want to come to the defense of it because
you don't need to defend it. It's a nothing movie.
Well, no. That's what I'm saying is there's nothing right now, but the movie is actually setting up something that's going to be larger in Phase 4. So the whole thing at the end, with Julie Louis-Dreyfus, is that her name?
Yeah.
Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So we see her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Technically, for us, that was the first time that we saw her. Was whenever she was basically taking John Walker. What they're doing there, and like they set up with Natasha's sister, is either the Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers storyline. Because what's happening is she works for Thunderbolt Ross. So what he's trying to do that we don't exactly know as far as just the main MCU, he's got crazy Captain America. He'll have Black Widow's sister. And then he's also looking at potential people like Abomination and those other characters. So with Julie Louis-Dreyfus' character, she's basically kind of the middle person to get all these people together. So right now, Black Widow's a nothing movie, but I think once they actually start to set up the Thunderbolts or whatever they're doing, it'll make more sense for her storyline. So, yeah.
So, but we needed a whole movie for a side character to make sense.
Well, Black Widow never got her movie, and that's the thing. If this would have came out when it was supposed to, but no, not COVID. I mean, in the timeline, like if it would have actually came out closer to Civil War, it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Yeah, moving on. So what happened? So Phase 4 technically began with Far From Home, even though it's not Far From Home in the timeline. So let's try to go chronologically, which would be WandaVision. Wanda becomes extremely distraught. Very distraught and goes off and, mind controls an entire area into thinking that they're in TV or whatever. We've kind of already talked about it on the channel, but just since we're doing like a recap of what we feel about the Marvel Phase 4 so far, is I feel like WandaVision really started these like character pieces that we're getting. And this is really good because after like years of kind of surface level stuff going on with our heroes and characters, well, I guess it's not necessarily surface level. There's some deep stuff like, Steve Rogers coming forward in time and having to watch Peggy die, right? So like there's some deep stuff there, but we just weren't able to really explore it as much as we really were. So WandaVision's I feel like the first time we really started exploring how people feel. And I feel like I felt more in Shang-Chi and Eternals, and I believe it's because they went so deep into WandaVision, into her feelings and everything, that they're like, okay, we have to keep this going. I think they realized to a certain extent the funny quips and everything is good, but people also really need that emotional attachment, and I think WandaVision was that first step into that.
Yeah, and the best thing I'll say about WandaVision is it was our first taste into what Disney and what Marvel shows were going to be. And I think it was perfect that they introduced it with WandaVision because it was wacky and weird. I mean, we, for the first 4 weeks, didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And once we get that like final like cherry on the top, like all wrapped up in a bow at the end of the season, does everything click and make sense and gives you a different context to it. And with WandaVision, I do agree with you. With the shows, they've actually been following a really good trend of showing character growth. And that's something that we're starting to see more and more in Phase 4. And I think we're going to see going down the line. Things like Moon Knight, for example. But the thing so far that all of the shows, and recency bias with Shang-Chi having just, finished it recently, that's what we're seeing with Phase 4 is we're getting rid of a lot of the like the movie superhero stereotype that you could kind of stamp on pretty much all like the Avengers movies. Like it's just, and all of these different shows and movies that we've gotten so far have been individual, unique character stories that don't have, to put it in the most blunt and rude way, that doesn't have a white man's stamp on it, because like, the whole thing with Eternals, I went and watched it. We both went and watched it, but walking out of the theater, I'm like, I literally don't understand what the bad reviews are for. None whatsoever.
They're bad reviews, really?
Yeah, it's at a 43 on Rotten Tomatoes. Eternals got review bombed.
Really?
Most people were saying it was because of the straight white men who didn't basically because this is the most inclusive Marvel movie. That's why it's getting review bombed.
Oh God.
Because it doesn't center around Captain America or Thor or Chris Evans. These
Right.
alpha male. That's what the
The
conjecture
grumblings.
is. Yeah. But yeah, with WandaVision, we get to see grief
Mm-hmm.
from, like, what was really cool about it is we get to see the stages of grief. Each episode ended up being that individual thing and led this mystery week after week that made us wanting more. It made us realize, hey, Marvel, you shouldn't have done that to us because now you spoiled us completely.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
it was cool that they started with that and then went to Winter Soldier, or Falcon and Winter Soldier, because as much as I really did enjoy it, I think it really is a good in between buffer between,
It's a palate cleanser.
palette cleanser between original Captain America and then the new Cap story we're going to get.
Right.
It was very much by the books Marvel.
Yes, very, very by the books. Yeah.
And it was pretty
It
like
was very by the books Captain America too. Like the espionage and just like the way the fight scenes were and stuff like that. Like even that was very Captain America.
which was great, but when you put it right in between Loki and WandaVision, these two cosmic stellar, in my opinion, the best content we've gotten from Marvel so far, it
Oh yeah,
unfortunately stands
definitely.
out.
Yes, it does. It does. I mean, just like Black Widow. I mean, if we put Black Widow right in between Shang-Chi and Eternals, it's like it definitely stands
Yeah.
out there. So you bring up a good point there. So yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I really enjoyed. I think they could have done better for the villain because I felt like they were
Yeah.
trying really hard to make her sympathetic, but also she was a fucking mass murderer. She would kill people because of her cause, and she didn't care. It'd be one thing if she felt bad about it. You know what I mean? And then we could feel for that, right? But it's like she blew up a building and people definitely died, and she was just like, oh well, the cause, and that's not sympathetic. Like even when Thanos is ready to take out half the freaking universe, there is still a part of him that's like he's doing it for the greater good, and maybe he doesn't even want to do it, which we'll get into Thanos in a little bit. I'll tell you
Hashtag Thanos
what,
was right.
right? But still, it's like we can see, even though we 100% don't agree with him, we can see that turmoil in his head
Yeah.
and his determination. Whereas making her kill a bunch of people and then not give a fuck, it made no sense why Falcon was trying so damn hard to convert her. It's like she was gone. She was far gone. And there was no saving her. You could argue that, oh, maybe he was going to save her, but then the new Captain America walked in and messed it up. I don't know.
I
don't know.
I see it that way. For me, the way I agree with you. They did have a weak villain, but I think that was because they were trying to basically instill the message of that we're the villains, or actually the people who pretty much stayed during the blip. Not necessarily, but pretty much saying humanity and governments trying to take advantage of the situation and try to get their power back are the villains here with that
Yeah.
end speech. But the problem with that is we don't have a good villain to attach to.
Yeah.
Because even, Zemo, who, we thought was going to be the villain, he kind of underwhelmingly didn't end up being, but still enjoyed his performance.
Right.
And
And then I think for the most part the Zemo's a good example because like his ending just kind of happened and then the girl's ending kind of just happened, even though it was at the end of this like gut-wrenching sequence. It was just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's done now, so now I'm going to spew out some speech or whatever, and it's like, okay, I get it, I really do, but she killed people and she didn't have remorse.
yeah,
I feel like your speech would have made way more sense for somebody who killed people and felt deep remorse about it.
yeah.
You are essentially defending a murderer, just plain and simple. So it's like whether or not you have some really, really good points, it's still a fucking murderer, you know? So
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on Falcon and Winter Soldier to give it a big plus is what they tried to do for messaging. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier just, and this is coming from, a white male, so
white,
what have you. I personally feel like it is the best interpretation in media that we've gotten about the current struggle with racism that we're still dealing with. And I thought it handled the situation from the whole Isaiah storyline to the whole thing with, just the conversation of, can a black man be Captain America? Like that being a focal point in the series and being handled so well and not ham-fisted like we've seen on other shows was really, really nice to see. And that that ending with Isaiah, that whole thing, it made me emotional. And maybe just because I know a lot of the history behind like the whole thing with that and how important that was and how they really did bring that to life. But I'm sorry, I just can't not see Falcon, Captain America, and that Buzz Lightyear. Thanks to the internet, the week after that episode aired, whenever he opens the suitcase, when they're like, "Oh yeah, we got this from the Wakandans," the meme is that he opens up the picture and it's Buzz Lightyear's jetpack. And now, ever since I've seen that, that's all I can see. Anytime he wears a suit.
You're a dork.
Yes, I am.
So then we move on to Loki, which, yeah, like you said, Loki and WandaVision, like, honestly, I can't pick a favorite because there's certain things I loved about Wanda, exploring grief and, like you said, the different stages. And I really like that. And then there's Tom Hiddleston as Loki. And it's like, it's genuinely hard to pick a favorite between WandaVision and Loki. What would you lean towards, but maybe not like lay down on and get busy with?
Oh, I mean, I can get down and dirty on one in particular. I can tell you that for a fact.
Which one?
Loki, 100%.
Loki, yeah.
100%. Because WandaVision I do love, and I do feel like it is important, and it's a really good piece of Marvel content. That being said, there are some parts about it that just don't click for me, primarily the stuff with Spectre, or whatever they're going to call her, with Monica Rambeau. Basically how she got her powers, and there are stuff in there where it's just a little too weird for me at times. Whereas with Loki, like right now, that is the most important, I feel like, content with Marvel in the universe until we get to No Way Home, because we get the reveal of the next big bad completely with Kang. And when the last episode is a 50-minute long episode of a monologue, and it's one of my favorite moments of Marvel content in the past 10 years. That tells you something. It is. And in kind of what you said with WandaVision, with grief, this one we get to see Loki discovering who he is. I was not expecting to see basically him watching his own death. I expected him to be more pompous, throughout most of the episodes like we had in 2012 Loki. But seeing that in the first episode, already you kind of go from the beginning of, oh, he's going to grow and figure out kind of who he is. But just the storyline and everything with the TVA, and oh my God, Owen Wilson. Shout out to Owen Wilson. And can we get this man a jet ski, please? Please.
Yeah. As far as it being the most important, the fact that it sets up Kang, the fact that it sets up the multiverse of madness that is the namesake of the next Doctor Strange, I think is really cool. So I guess I will kind of lean towards, Loki, if only just because Tom Hiddleston's performance and the whole multiverse aspect of it.
And that one-shot scene in that, oh God, that one episode when they were in space was just, well, they're in space the whole time. That one, the one that's dying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one's good. Yeah. So then,
I feel like we're left with the movies at that point. Well, no, you got What If. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So What If? I mean, we'll do that one next because that technically could have happened at any time.
Technically.
So, what if has some fucking stinkers? I did not like Party Loki. I did not like the Wakandan one. I like certain aspects of it, but it's like I did not enjoy that one from start to finish.
Are you talking about the Star-Lord, the
well, that one too.
T'Challa
yeah,
Star-Lord?
where T'Challa is Star-Lord. I didn't really enjoy that one too, but no, I'm talking about when Killmonger took over the whole...
when he saves Tony Stark.
Yeah. Like, I didn't really like that at all. Like, it was interesting, but it didn't keep me interested, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, out of the, how many episodes? 7?
I think so.
Yeah?
Maybe
Out
6.
of the 7 episodes, there were 3 that were just like absolute bangers. Absolute bangers. 2 of them were, good, and I enjoyed them, and then like the rest were just like, oh my god, like, and it was all setting up this big showdown at the end. So I guess
9.
to a certain extent, 9. Oh wow, I was way off. So yeah, definitely 4 then. I said 3 or 4. It's like there's definitely at least close to half of them that I just absolutely loved, and then some of them were just okay, and then some of them I just can't stand, and I probably will never. Like, I'll go back, especially now that there's going to be a Marvel Zombies. I will go back and I will watch the Marvel Zombies, episode. I'll go back and watch the, Captain Carter episode. I'll go back and watch the last episode. You know what I mean? But all the other ones, they have such good concepts, but they're either way too married to the original, but just a little bit of difference, or like they're just boring.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is especially with the end 2 episodes, like if Ultron 1 and then the finale, they are so batshit crazy because they go full multiverse, and
yes,
so they make the other ones kind of worse in comparison. Like for me, I can agree with the Star-Lord T'Challa one, and it's not that I didn't like it. As far like it was great, but it was too optimistic. Like you're telling me that he talked down Thanos from that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, that's just a little too like that kind of rings past. But like, I loved the Doctor Strange one because I knew it was going to kind of tie into the deeper lore of what they're doing, what if, and I know that's one that you didn't really care for. Whereas with zombies, I think I don't care for it by itself, but if it's basically the starting point to like something with Marvel Zombies, like where that's a continuation, I'm cool with it because I just didn't like the way it ended. Like I wanted to see more of it.
You wanted to see Zambi Thanos.
Zambi Thanos.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, it was a good experience. I think they should have just released them all, because I think if I would have binged it, would have loved it 100% all the way through. Well, except for Party Thor. Nothing can save Party Thor, because it was just. If anything, I think Party Thor should have been the first one. Get the fun, goofy stuff out of the way so that we could get to the more serious. But it being like right before What If Ultron 1, and that's like the pen ultimate, it's just like it was just badly placed. Yeah. But if they would have done it at the beginning and they would have teased an Ultron who won, and then we didn't get to see what happened if Ultron won until the second to last episode, I think that would have been a nice like little Easter egg or whatever, like like what's this or whatever. And maybe that's why we were going through this whole thing, because the Watchers saw that happen, so now we're going to the different versions, you know what I mean? So like just placing it in a different order, I think would have I would have cared more. But since it's like I think it's when I have 1 or 2 meh episodes in a row and then something like that, it makes it even worse. And it's like I think the last 2 ones weren't like super great, so I don't know. All right, let's move on to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Thoughts?
it was just crazy, and I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I was. And it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of hard because it is one of the first Marvel movies where I had the luxury to pause it for watching it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of it was one of those. It took me out because we had to like stop at one point because it was really late, and so ended up finishing it today. But so like leading up to we had basically gotten to the part where they meet Trevor again, which great that he was the whole him and Morse. I'll get into something later on, but um, we got into that part, and I was like, I like it. I'm not liking it as much as Black Panther because Black Panther's still one of those like individual. Like if we're looking at individual character movies, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Shang-Chi and Black Panther are the two best ones that we have so far because they represent individual cultural differences in a very good way. Like Shang-Chi, obviously
Mm-hmm.
for Chinese and Asian culture, and Black Panther, of course, for Black culture. Anyway, it's just all right. We'll edit there because I don't know where I was going with that one.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but Shang-Chi doesn't come close to Black Panther because I hated Black Panther.
Yeah, and
Too
that's
much, too much CG. But that whole bus scene, there was clear CG elements to it, but they built a freaking bus on a goddamn rig, and they had the one shot go from the front of the bus all the way to the back of the bus in one shot. So everything outside the bus was obviously CG, but the action was happening in camera, and
yeah,
it's like you can't beat that. Your eyes know, even if the dragon looked like super cool and the scales were superly heavily defined, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because if that was the whole movie and it was all just CG like that, I would have hated it just as much as Black Panther. But since we had those like kind of grounded moments, like the one on the scaffolding, that whole scene, and the fact
mm.
that a lot of that was done for real as well, it's like, oh,
It honestly, because it was so kind of kung fu fantastical at the beginning, and the camera work because that was not something I'd seen a lot. It kind of took me out of it how floaty it was.
mm-hmm.
Like in the very first scene, whenever his dad and his mom meet for the first time, how the camera was doing those like wide pan outs. Like I was like, oh, this is different. But for me, my whole experience to summarize, enjoyed it. Was very apprehensive for first half of it, and then when I finished it, I was like, I fucking love this. This is
Yeah,
awesome. Like this is a really cool. And unlike Black Panther, it really kind of separates itself out of the MC. It is the most
yeah,
separate. It's basically just an MCU connections. Everything else
yeah.
is. I mean, we haven't heard anything from the Soul Eaters before. Nothing along those lines. We have no idea what those creatures were.
Mm-hmm.
But man, shout out to Wong. We want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
special characters.
Any hosers. So, yeah, Shang-Chi good. Shang-Chi very good. I like it. And yeah, I agree. It's very much its own movie. And it's not one of those like world ending thing that like, oh my God, why aren't the Avengers here? Well, the Avengers aren't there because that place is a like it's almost a dimensional thing because like when they
Yeah.
went into the thing, like they came out a freaking portal made out of water. So it's like that was clearly like a different dimension or like a pocket dimension maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the Avengers aren't here because of that. Which are you could argue like the whole Wakandan thing, they were inside like a hologram bubble or whatever, but still like that makes sense by itself. All right, now let's get to the most mind-blowing thing, and that's the Eternals. So first off, a little context for me personally, and that is I watched this in theaters, which is one of the first time I've been back to the theaters for about probably 6 months. So it was a good return in my opinion. And just so we're clear, you mentioned it earlier, it's 47% for critics, but 80% for audience scores. And that's with 5,000 plus verified ratings. So the critics didn't really like it, but the audience really really responded well to it. It looks like, so I'm glad because I loved it. You know, the whole getting the band back together type of thing has been done so many times. So for them to somehow just make it work, and the way they made it work for me personally was like what saved this entire movie. You know, because the action scenes are good, the characters are good or whatever, but it's like it actually made me care, and it actually answered um a pretty a pretty obvious question. You know, when you see these people who can shoot lasers from their eyes and stuff like that, right? Where were they during Endgame? And they answered it, and it wasn't just like an answer that was like, oh yeah, we just didn't want to. It's like, no, it actually made sense in the context of the characters and the story and everything. And so I think like that was going to be my number one thing that was going to break the movie for me. If they didn't make me believe that they wouldn't have interfered during Endgame, then I just wouldn't believe the whole movie, you know. And having that entire scene with the one that can control people, having him basically go rogue and be like, all right guys, I'm out of here. I can't keep watching them kill themselves.
Yeah.
I can't. And having that breaking point for him and seeing all the others, like you can tell they don't like it either, but maybe they're committed to their cause. Having that breaking point was like, that was the answer I needed in order for me to really invest myself and my emotions into this storyline.
Yeah. Now, I'll go ahead and start because I have very few. The only negative I have about Eternals is just I feel like it was just a lot. Like I feel like they had a lot of information that they had to present, and so it's one of those.
I mean, it's thousands of years, Nathaniel. Would you like it to be 4 hours long?
No. What I was going to say is like this is one that I'm going to have to watch like new Rockstars videos on, watch a couple different times to kind of get everything. So that's my only negative.
Negative, right? Yeah.
Overall, though, it was incredible what the movie was able to do because not only was it the most inclusive superhero movie we've had to date, when you have every spectrum pretty much covered as far as, you know, you've got now the problem is I don't remember a lot of their names except for Rob Stark and Selma Hayek. Ajak and Icarus.
There you go.
The speedster, I don't remember what her name was. But
hold on, Sprite.
No, that's not the speedster. Sprite is the one that
speedster. Sorry. Makara. Makari, maybe?
Makari. I think it's Makari.
Yeah, maybe it's Makari.
And it being one of those movies that made me feel gross for being a human being afterwards is interesting.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because the scene that broke me was the one where and what's his name? Not the engineer, the tech guy.
Yeah, Fastos.
The scene that broke me was the one that broke him. Like when he's standing on Hiroshima and it's like I've lost all faith. Like it's one of those. I like that they put that in there because for most people who may not be aware, might be too young, like seeing that on a Hollywood Marvel movie on the forefront showing, hey, we did this and it's not okay.
Right.
Was really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but the juxtaposition between him being completely broken and giving up on humanity, and then the next time we see him, he has a family and he has a reason to care about humanity. Yeah. And it's one that makes sense. It's not just like, please, okay, I'll come help you.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's what I mean by this whole getting the band back together made a lot of sense. And as far as, like you said, you know, covering every like nationality and like group or whatever, Angelina Jolie plays Thena. Thena is essentially an allegory for Alzheimer's. Then you have Selma Hayek, which is obviously, you know, Spanish. You have Circe, whatever.
Cersei?
Cersei, thank you. Which is obviously Asian. You have Dane, which is English. Icarus, which is either Scottish or Irish. What do you think?
He's British.
No, his accent was very much like indubitably play.
Well, he might be Irish, but I'm pretty sure he's English, like in his nationality.
All right, you need to go back and watch a couple of scenes because he's clearly either Irish or Scottish. There's a couple of times where he's like very deep in his accent. Then Kingo, obviously he's Israeli. I love the fact that he's a Bollywood star. Huh?
He's Scottish.
Scottish, haha. So, anyways, so Kingo, yeah, he's Israeli, and I love that he's a Bollywood star. Then you have a black guy, and it's not just a black guy; it's a black gay guy. And they didn't even do that stupid thing that Disney movies do, where they made a whole scene just so that they could take it out, or they like the lesbian kiss in the most recent Star Wars was such a blink and you miss it moment that they could take it out of the Asian market. Whereas this whole Fastos thing, how do you take that entire scene with him and his family out of the movie just to appease your Asian audience, your German audience, the audiences that are still not okay with gay people? You can't. And so the fact that we finally got like a true representation, and they weren't just living together. No, they were married and they had a kid together.
Yeah,
like that was so clear. Then Makari, she is deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So Druig is white.
And
then you have sorry, what go?
Well, I was gonna say with Druig, I think that's where they're actually coming from, the Druid ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, it's Celtic, covering like Celtic.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. So yeah, I mean the fact that you have, like you said, the most inclusive cast here or whatever, and
very representational film across the board.
Right. And then I love the mid-season twist. I love the mid-season twist where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, the reason you're here is to kill everyone on this planet.
Yeah.
And that kind of realization, like, oh yeah, we buried an egg in the core, it's gonna hatch because there's enough population here, was just like, whoa, okay, wow. Like, so not only that, but then you get the realization that this isn't their first time, even though they thought it was. So they've literally been waiting around for thousands and thousands of years for the population to get to a certain point, and it's finally there. And now they can go home just to have their memories wiped and do it all over again. Which is why Thena, Angelina Jolie's character, is breaking, because some of her memories are coming through or whatever. And like, this one thing I like about Marvel going forward is we're getting to a cosmic level. We're getting to a multiversal level. It's no longer just the world, which obviously Eternals was very world, but it had a cosmic, and same thing with Shang-Chi. Like, there's this otherworldly, nature to it. And I'm loving that we're just getting these less grounded, I guess is a better it's less grounded, because the phase 1, 2, and 3 was very like, okay, how could this happen on Earth? And Captain America can do stuff, but only as much as it would make sense in the real world or something. So the fact that we're getting these cosmic events or whatever is so great, because they basically just found out their entire lives were a lie. And yeah.
Well,
so then you have... Go ahead.
Sorry. No, finish, because I'm going to switch on. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to move on to the other twist.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, then the other twist being that the Irish dude, or Scottish, thank you, the Scottish dude knew about it and was the one that killed Ajax? Yeah, Ajax. The fact that he killed Ajax and has basically been like a double agent this whole time is just like, I didn't necessarily see that coming. I thought somebody was going to
Yeah.
turn at the end, but they were really setting up, like Kingo, for instance. They were really setting him up because when he found out, he didn't immediately go, "Oh my god, this is so messed up." He was more like, "But think about all the billions we'd be saving." Like he literally had so they were clearly setting up other people to kind of have that. Whereas Icarus, like he definitely had lines where he was just like, "I don't know, this is kind of our way or whatever," but it wasn't. He was stoic enough to just be like, "Okay, well, we don't have to worry about him." And I guess the fact that he was in love with Cersei's really did kind of shield us from that. So
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I knew that there was something afoot. I knew it wasn't as clear cut that the deviants killed Ajax, but I wasn't confident it was Icarus. Well, just overall in the comics, there is a fight between the Watchers and the Celestials. Not necessarily a fight, quote unquote, but they're opposing sides because the Watchers just believe in observing and monitoring events, whereas Celestials obviously they want to create and destroy, worlds so they can create more Celestials. So, with what's going on at the end of What If, and then what happens at the end with Arishem the Judge, basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to review your memories so I can see if Earth is worth saving." Maybe the Watchers step in again. We already saw so they are going places, and then you've got Moon Knight and She-Hulk and Miss Marvel and Secret Invasion. I mean, we are in a really good Marvel time, dream time right now. Hopefully they keep the trend that they've been going with, and it's not going to become too much. Because I don't want us to have a flood where it's just like, I don't want to get to that point again. But so far, everything has been hidden.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a year off was a good thing, even though it wasn't necessarily our choice or their choice. But maybe a year off was a good thing because I feel so far everything that's been happening, even the shows and everything, even the misses of What If and the misses at times of like Falcon and Winter Soldier, for instance, even the misses that we have had haven't been that bad. It's not something that's going to like, oh my God, I'm so done with Marvel movies. And by Endgame, even though we love Endgame, it was to the point where it's like, all right, Marvel movies are just all the same. And so the fact that we're kind of going into this new era or whatever is a good thing. So now let's talk about #Thanos was right. This had me thinking for like days afterwards. So the mid-credit scene, we have fucking Harry Styles. Harry Styles show up with Patton Oswalt as his little dwarf. And turns out he's Thanos' brother. And Harry Styles reveals that he is an Eternal. So we're on our way to go pick up our kids, or pick up Maddie rather. And I have this realization. I'm like, oh my God. So Thanos was an Eternal, and he tried to get rid of half of humanity. So he was the good guy in that sense, because if we got to a certain population, the Celestial would have bursted out of our planet and killed us all. So Thanos was right. And like that moment was just like, my mind just broke.
Yeah. And like I was basically they just made his lineage a lot more confusing because he's not exactly an Eternal, but he's also not exactly a deviant.
Just so we're clear, we're talking about the movie, and right now the movie has set him up as his brother.
Well,
you could go into the comic book and say, "Oh, well, he's part deviant, part whatever."
No. What I'm saying is he's not genetically an Eternal, because as they have instituted, Eternals were created beings based out of cosmic energy with all these powers. Thanos was not that. He was.
How do we know?
Because he was
more powerful than all the Avengers. So
yeah, but that's based like, and maybe they haven't officially confirmed it, but from my understanding of what I know about the storyline overall is he is a Titan.
well, right. So that's what I'm saying is that you're going off of your past knowledge of, whereas right now all we know is that Thanos has a brother. His brother's an Eternal. So that's all I'm saying. Now, they could end up saying, oh, he was part deviant, yada, yada, but we don't know that yet. Right now, all we know is what Patton Oswalt said. Thanos, his brother, blah-de-dee-blah. And it's like, whoa, 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 his brother? And then now we know he's an Eternal. So that's all we know right now.
True.
I mean,
true.
Marvel has been known to change up certain things. So for all we know, yes, Thanos was an Eternal, and or he was close enough to Eternals to know some shit. So he could have found out about Celestials, and basically him saying I'm getting rid of half a civilization is actually helping, because then that means they don't have enough He could have saved tons of worlds. How many Celestials are out there? You know, we don't know. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're going off of the comic book knowledge rather than like what we know right now. So it could end up being confirmed, but it also could not. So since this is Phase 4 and not comic books, that's all I have to, that's all I have to clarify, is that we don't know. And I mean, I like that. I like not knowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just a like, what the fuck moment. Like, oh my God. So yeah. I am surprised that the critics, because I feel like critics for the most part do kind of lean left, even if it's not 100%, but they at least lean that way. So the fact that we do have the most inclusive, like you said, Eternals, and it's 47, it's like, but then the audience, like, I'll never understand how this happens. Like, what's up with critics? And maybe it's critics are just so sick of Marvel movies, and it's because they have to do this for a living, whereas we do this for enjoyment.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you guys think about Phase 4 so far? On a scale from 1 to 10, how hyped are you for freaking Spider-Man?
So hyped, but don't show me anymore.
Yeah, so comment down below and let us know. I was Nick.
And I was Nate.
And we're going to go ahead and let you go. You have a good day. Have a good day.